Okay, take a look at this. A wheeled suitcase. Seems totally normal, right? It's probably one of the most common, most obvious inventions in the entire world. But the story behind it, well, it actually reveals this really strange glitch in the way all of our brains work. A blind spot that affects every single one of us every single day.
So here's the central mystery, the thing that is just so wild when you think about it. We've had wheels for literally millennia, and we've had suitcases for centuries. So why on earth did it take until 1972 for somebody to finally put the two together? It's a question that sounds completely absurd the second you hear it, doesn't it?
I mean, just look at this timeline. You've got the wheel, invented way back around 3500 BC. Then you have the modern suitcase, which has been around since the 19th century. And then nothing. A gap of over 5,000 years. For generations, people were lugging these heavy, awful bags through airports and train stations, their arms aching, while the solution was literally rolling around everywhere else in their lives. It's kind of mind-boggling.
So the first thing we have to get out of our heads is that this was some big technological challenge. It wasn't. The parts were there, the need was definitely there, people weren't dumb. The real reason is so much stranger, and it has everything to do with how our brains are wired.
Exactly. The failure here wasn't about technology. It was about our minds. This isn't a story about engineering. It's a story about perception. It pulls back the curtain on this massive blind spot we have, a glitch that stops us from seeing the most obvious problems, even when they're right in front of our faces.
So let's break this down. What is this cognitive glitch? What was really stopping us from seeing such a simple, obvious solution for literally thousands of years?
And here we go. This is the absolute heart of it. When we face an inconvenience over and over and over again, our first instinct, weirdly, isn't to fix it. It's to endure it. We just adapt. Carrying a heavy suitcase through a giant airport is super annoying, right? But for decades, we just told ourselves, well, that's just part of travel. We normalized the struggle instead of ever questioning it. Let's actually give this a name. Let's call it familiar absurdity. It's what happens when something is obviously illogical or inefficient, but we've seen it so many times that our brain just short-circuits and accepts it as normal. A suitcase without wheels is, objectively, a terrible design for moving heavy stuff, but for decades it was just a suitcase. The absurdity was hiding in plain sight. Now, this whole strange story teaches us a really powerful first lesson, and it's one that can fundamentally shift how we think about innovation itself. You see, the person who finally patented the wheeled suitcase wasn't some mad genius who created something out of thin air. The suitcase was already there. The wheels were already there. The aha moment, the real genius, was just in making the connection, seeing how these two old things could solve a problem that everybody else had just decided to live with. And that's the key right there. So often we think breakthroughs are about inventing something brand new, but a lot of the time they come from just re-examining what's already here, but with fresh eyes. It's about training yourself to look at something familiar and ask, wait a second, does this actually make any sense? And that brings us to a second and maybe even more powerful lesson. Once you understand this idea, I promise you, you will start seeing it absolutely everywhere, and not just with luggage. This is where it gets really personal for all of us. We all deal with friction and frustration in our daily lives, and we just kind of accept it as the way things are. We assume life is just supposed to be hard in these very specific ways. But here's the thing. It's usually not fate. It's just bad design. Seriously, think about it. All of these are our modern-day suitcases without wheels. They're frustrations that we've come to accept as normal, but they're really just poorly designed systems. A pointless meeting isn't some law of physics, it's just a broken process. A confusing form isn't a fact of life, it's a failure of design. We've just gotten used to them. So why? Why do we put up with it? Well, it's because our brains are wired for efficiency, and that means prioritizing what's familiar over what's actually logical. The first question your brain asks when it sees a system isn't, does this make sense? No, the first question is, have I seen this before? And if the answer is yes, it just flags it as normal and moves on, even if the system is completely ridiculous. And this is the phrase that kills progress. This is the official anthem of familiar absurdity. It's the sound of a brain choosing the comfortable, familiar path over the better, more logical one. It's the reason countless suitcases without wheels continue to exist in our workplaces and in our lives. So, if our own brains are basically programmed to accept these flaws, how do we fight back? Well, it turns out the solution is to learn how to ask one simple but incredibly powerful question. And make no mistake, this principle applies everywhere. Our work culture, our school systems, our daily routines, they are all filled with these legacy ideas that are now just heavy bags that we're all forced to drag around, day in and day out. This is the ultimate takeaway here. Longevity is not a sign of quality. It's usually just a sign of inertia. We have to stop assuming that established systems are good systems. Most of the time, it just means nobody has gotten around to putting wheels on them. Yet. And here it is. This is the one question that cuts through that fog of familiar absurdity. The next time you're stuck in a pointless meeting, or filling out a frustrating form, or just doing something that feels off, I want you to stop and ask yourself, wait a minute, why are we still doing it this way? So look around your own life. What's your suitcase without wheels? And more importantly, what are you going to do about it?